What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you 3 envelopes that I recently got back in the mail. So let's just jump right into this and see where it goes. Alright, this first one is postmarked from Virginia. And it is a return from former big leaguer Denny Walling on 1, or Dennis Walling, whatever you want to call him. 2 is a Cardinal. 3 is an Astro. And a 4th is an Astro. So Denny Walling, a New Jersey native, played his high school baseball, played some college baseball, but transferred to Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina to finish out his collegiate baseball career. He was drafted originally by the San Francisco Giants, but chose not to sign and instead returned to play for Clemson, where the following year in 1975, the Oakland A's made him their number 1 first-round pick. Well, shortly after the draft, Walling just had a few touch-up games, I guess you would say, and did not appear in any minor league games after he was drafted, and appeared in 6 games in the major leagues briefly in 1975 for the Oakland A's. Well, the A's, going into the 76 season, sent Walling down for the entire year almost, where he only appeared in 3 games at the major league level. After the 76 season, the Oakland A's decided to trade Walling to the Houston Astros, which is where he would spend the majority of his career. Well, from 1977 to 1988, part of 1988, so a total of 13 years, or 12 years, excuse me, consecutively, he was in Houston playing in the Astrodome. He was a starter occasionally, here and there. He played multiple positions. He played third base. He played the outfield a little bit. But most notably, he was the left-handed hitter off the bench. He was a Mr. Clutch type of hitter coming into a ball game. He had some pretty decent seasons for the Astros and batted over 300 once, 299 another season. Hovered around that 300 mark a few times. 1986, actually, he batted 312 and hit 13 home runs, where it looks like he appeared in 130 games. So he was a full-time player in 1986. Well, he would never match those numbers again. However, he would stick around another almost not quite a decade, but half a decade, playing for various teams as a bench player, a pinch hitter. Well, after the 1987 season, which he had a pretty decent season, in 1988, on August 31st, the Houston Astros traded Denny Walling for the St. Louis Cardinals veteran Bob Forsch. And Forsch was a staple of the Cardinals for a long time. However, they decided to swap veterans at the end of the 1988 season. Well, the Cardinals were impressed enough with Walling that they kept him around for another couple years, and he played all the way through 1990 with the Cardinals until they let him go via free agency. Going into the 1991 season, Walling appeared in only 24 games for the Texas Rangers and spent some time in the minor leagues, just a few games. So I don't know if he was on the injured list or what. Well, he was only there till June of 91 when the Rangers let him go. Going into the 1991-92 offseason, he had no place to go. However, the Astros brought him back for one last go-around and signed him to a contract in 1992. He only appeared in 3 games for the Astros that year, so I'm not really sure what he did in 1992. However, he must have spent some time on the injured list or whatever, because he only appeared in 3 games. Overall in his career, Walling played in parts of 18 seasons in the major leagues. That is amazing that somebody played that long in the major leagues and really wasn't a starter. I mean, he was a starter for a couple seasons here and there, but that just tells you how good he was with the bat. As a matter of fact, his nickname that teammates gave him was called Good Wood because he was a valuable bat off the bench. His 108 career pinch hits are tied 13th all-time on the all-time list. After his playing career, he briefly did some coaching work for the Norfolk Tides, the AAA affiliate of the Orioles. He still is in baseball to this day, I believe. In some capacity, he works as a roving hitting instructor, spring training instructor for. As I mentioned, he was hired by the Orioles, and he's a roving minor league instructor. And I think he either works as a rover or he still works in some sort of capacity in baseball. I think with the Orioles, but I'm not positive. So, very impressive to add an 18-year Major League veteran to my collection. Thank you very much, Mr. Walling. I really appreciate it. All right, so this next one is postmarked from Massachusetts. And this is one that I've been wanting to get for a little while. And it is former Pittsburgh Pirate great Richie Hebner on one. My Pittsburgh Pirates playing card that I've featured in different episodes so far, if you guys have seen that. And him as a Philly, a Cub, and a fifth one this time as a Met. So this basically covered his whole career, I believe, playing-wise, for every team. So let me tell you a little bit about Richie Hebner. Richie Hebner was a Massachusetts native. He played his high school baseball at Norwood High School in Massachusetts. He was drafted in the first round, 15th overall, in the 1966 draft by the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a very short stint in the minor leagues. Well, not short. He spent a couple seasons in the minor leagues from 66, 67, and most of 1968. However, at 20 years young, 20 years old, he got a call up to the major leagues and appeared in 2 games on September 23rd, 1968. He only got 1 at-bat in those 2 games. Well, in 1969, third base was his. He must have impressed enough in the Pirates organization that the job was his to lose. Well, he responded at 21 years old, batting an amazing .301 and cracking 8 home runs and driving in 47 his rookie season. He would follow that up with a .290 batting average, .270, .300, and so on. He would bat .300 a couple times in his career, over .300 I should say. Actually, he batted .300 exactly one year for a few seasons, but he was the staple in Pittsburgh primarily from 1969 all the way till 1976. He was a big part of the success of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was on the 1971 World Series championship team. After he left the Pirates, he signed as a free agent with cross-state rival Philadelphia. At the time, there was this young man named Mike Schmidt working his way up the ranks for the Philadelphia Phillies. Because of Mike Schmidt, primarily, Hebner was moved to first base, as that card indicates. Well, he only played a couple seasons with the Phillies before the Phillies decided to trade him to the New York Mets. Well, the Mets, it was a very short-lived tenure with New York, as he played for the Mets for only 1 season. There is some history, I'm not going to get into it, about how Hebner did not enjoy his time in New York. However, he signed the card, so I guess he didn't hate it that much. After his time with the Mets, they traded him to the Detroit Tigers, and I do not have a Tigers one here. I forgot he played for the Tigers till just now. And he spent a couple seasons with the Tigers that were pretty solid. 1980, 81, and part of 1982. Well, in 1982, he had a homecoming and got traded back to the Pittsburgh Pirates for cash. So they didn't trade him, they just sold him outright. Well, after a couple seasons with Pittsburgh again, in 1983, he was granted free agency and he signed with the Chicago Cubs. Well, the Chicago Cubs, he primarily was a backup first baseman, third baseman. He spent a couple seasons with the Cubs, and in 1985, at the age of 37, this is in 85, he decided to retire from baseball. So, overall, he played 18 years in the majors. Again, somebody that spent a long time in the majors. After his playing career, he got into coaching. He coached for various organizations, including the Pirates, during that tenure, up until only a few years ago when he stepped down from coaching in the minor leagues. Now, another neat thing about Richie Hebner is he actually, during his playing career, because he didn't have that much money, actually worked as a grave digger with his father during the off season. He would actually dig graves to stay in shape, which is pretty cool if you ask me. And I'm going to post a picture of it right here. Well, if you guys remember back in October, I did an all-time, or October of 2019, I should say, not October of 2020. I did an all-time Halloween team, and because Richie Hebner's nickname is the Gravedigger, he is the starting third baseman on my all-time Halloween team. So check that video out. I'll link it at the end of this and down in the description. So, not to talk too much about that, but I just thought it was really cool that this guy's a gravedigger in the off-season. Could you imagine a current major leaguer digging graves in the off-season with his family business? That's just unheard of nowadays. So thank you very much, Mr. Hebner. All right, this next one is postmarked from Pennsylvania. And this is one of the greatest Phillies of all time. And that is former Philadelphia Philly Larry Bowa on 1, 2, Ted Williams collection, 3 from his managing days, and a 4th from his managing days with the Padres. So Larry Bowa, a California native, played his high school baseball in Sacramento, then later played college baseball at Sacramento City College in Sacramento, California. In 1965, he was undrafted and signed as a free agent with the Philadelphia Phillies. The switch-hitting shortstop stood at 5'10", 150 pounds. Being a switch hitter, he commonly was the leadoff hitter for his teams in the minor leagues and the majors. And he spent 1966 all the way through 1969 working his way through the minor leagues. And in 1970, he made his major league debut with the Philadelphia Phillies as a rookie. Well, in his rookie season, he had a solid year, stealing 24 bases, had 17 doubles, a decent career year. But his following year, he would appear in 159 games in 1971 and come to the plate 650 times. He had 650 at-bats his second season, leading the league in at-bats. And this is a guy that, because he was a leadoff hitter, he would bat 500 to 600 times a year. He played for the Phillies, making his first All-Star game in 1974. He would follow it up in 75 and 76 as an All-Star. Then he missed a year in 77 on the All-Star team. Then in 78 and 79, he was an All-Star again. So, primarily from 1970 all the way to 1981, Larry Bowa was the man up the middle for the Philadelphia Phillies, playing shortstop. He won 2 Gold Gloves. He was part of the 1980 World Series champion Philadelphia Phillies. And at 36 years old, after the 1981 season, in January of 1982, before the 1982 season, the Chicago Cubs acquired Larry Bowa and this little-known second baseman named Ryan Sandberg from the Philadelphia Phillies for Ivan DeJesus. So him and Rhino came to Chicago together, teaming with Richie Hebner around that same time period. Actually, Hebner was there in 85, so not in 82. And Bowa would continue to play with his magical skills as the starting shortstop, grooming along the young rookie Ryan Sandberg. Well, finally, in 1985, he only appeared in 72 games as a part-time player at 39 years old. And midway through the season, the Chicago Cubs on August 13th released Larry Bowa. However, he didn't stay unemployed long, as a week later, he signed with the Mets for the remainder of that season. So he played for the Mets for 14 games in 1985. I didn't know that he was a Met. After that season, he was given his free agency in 85, and he went on to get into the coaching ranks. And by 1987, he was the manager of the Padres. He would stay the manager of the Padres for 2 seasons. However, not finding any success with the Padres, he was let go. And he went back to coaching with the Philadelphia Phillies in 1989, where he would remain as a coach with the Phillies through 1996, and then would leave to go to the Anaheim Angels for 2 seasons before he became the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies in 2001. Oh, I'm sorry. He actually spent 1 season with Seattle in 2000 before he got the job as the Phillies manager in 01. Well, from 01 to 04, he was the Phillies manager. In 2001, he was actually the National League Manager of the Year. He stayed with the Phillies until 2004, when he was let go. He went into broadcasting for a season, then he resurfaced with the Yankees for a couple seasons. Then with the Los Angeles Dodgers with Joe Torre. He basically was friends with Joe Torre. And then he returned to the Philadelphia Phillies from 2014 to 2017. And believe it or not, that young man that he helped tutor play second base and third base for the Chicago Cubs, he was the bench coach under Ryan Sandberg. Well, when Ryan Sandberg was let go by the Phillies, Bowa finished the season with the Phillies, and that was the last time that he coached at the major league level. Since then, I'm not really too sure what he does. I believe that he works in some capacity still with the Phillies, just in kind of like a roving special instructor type of position. Now that he is, I think, officially retired from the dugout, so to speak. But I'm so happy to have Larry Bowa's autograph in my collection. He, of course, is in the Philadelphia Phillies Hall of Fame. One could possibly argue that he belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame. There's just so many great shortstops. You know, the Alan Trammels, the Barry Larkins, the players of that ilk that just have superior numbers, just a little bit better than Bowa. But the sheer longevity that Bowa had in the major leagues as an impactful switch-hitting shortstop who won Gold Gloves, that alone should be considered possibly for enshrinement in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. So thank you very much, Mr. Bowa. Thank you, Mr. Hebner, getting my playing card signed. And thank you again, Mr. Walling, as well. I want to thank you, the viewer, for joining me for another episode, and I look forward to your comments below. Thanks.